You wake up on a Tuesday morning, and the first thing you do, before your feet even touch the floor, is open your banking app. You don't want to. You promised yourself you would last week, but your hand moves before your brain catches up. The number on the screen is lower than you expected, lower than it was on payday, lower than it should be. You scroll back through the last 7 days trying to figure out where it went. Coffee, DoorDash, that impulse Amazon order at 11 at night, a subscription you forgot you had, 2 charges you don't even recognize. The math doesn't quite add up, but the result is the same. You're looking at a balance that's going to make the next 2 weeks tight. Again, you put the phone down, you tell yourself you'll figure it out this weekend. You won't, because every weekend for the last 6 months, you've told yourself the same thing. Now picture someone 2 doors down from you, same income, same job description, maybe a slightly older car. They wake up Tuesday morning and check the same 3 accounts you just checked. Their experience is completely different. Not because they earn more. They don't. Not because they got lucky with an inheritance or a windfall. They didn't. The difference is that 6 months ago, they sat down for one focused afternoon and ran themselves through a process. They figured out their real numbers. They identified where their money was actually going. They put their priorities in the right order. They wrote down a 30-day plan. And then they followed it. That's it. That's the whole difference. 2 people, same income, 2 completely different relationships with money. One operates from confusion every single morning. The other operates from clarity. The gap isn't intelligence. It isn't discipline. It's process. One of them has a system. The other one is trying to figure it out. One panic decision at a time. In the next 30 minutes, I'm going to walk you through the exact financial reset process that closes that gap. By the end of this video, you'll know your real numbers. You'll know where your money is leaking. You'll know what to fix first, second, and third. You'll know what your next 30 days should look like, week by week. None of this is theoretical. It's the same process I built into a complete system for people who want to do this on repeat. But the framework itself works whether you have anything else or not. You can pause this video, grab a notebook and your phone, and run yourself through every step as we go. Quick disclaimer before we start. This isn't financial advice. I don't know your situation. What I'm walking you through is a process for getting clear, not a prescription for what you specifically should do. Your decisions are yours. Let's get into it. Step 1 is the financial snapshot. This is the diagnostic phase. Before you fix anything, you need an honest picture of where you actually are. Most people skip this step because it feels uncomfortable. Looking at your real numbers means giving up the comfortable vagueness that lets you avoid making decisions. The vagueness feels safer in the short term. It's the reason you're stuck. The snapshot has 4 parts, and you can do it in about 15 minutes if you have the information ready. Open your banking app and write down 4 numbers, your current account balances across checking, savings, and any cash you have on hand. Your monthly take-home income, the actual amount that hits your account, not your gross salary. Your fixed monthly bills, meaning rent or mortgage, utilities, insurance, phone, anything that's the same every month. And your minimum debt payments across credit cards, student loans, car loans, anything else. Let me show you what this looks like with realistic numbers. Imagine someone earning a take-home income of $3,200 a month. Their checking account has $1,240. Their savings has $320, maybe $60 in cash. Their fixed monthly bills total $1,780. That's rent, utilities, insurance, phone, the recurring stuff. Their groceries and gas baseline, which isn't fixed but is essential, runs about $430 a month. Their minimum debt payments add up to $445. Add it all up. The required monthly outflow is $2,655. Subtract that from the take-home of $3,200 and you get $545. That's the real number. That's what's actually available for everything else. Eating out, entertainment, savings, extra debt payoff, surprise expenses, gifts, all of it. $545 across 30 days. That's about $18 a day of actual flexibility before something has to give. That number is the most important number in your financial life right now. And most people have never calculated it. They look at their $3,200 paycheck and feel like that's what they have. They're operating on a number that's nearly 6 times bigger than the reality. That perception gap is exactly why the same income produces wildly different outcomes for different people. The person operating on the real number doesn't feel rich, but they also don't make decisions that quietly destroy them. The person operating on the inflated number makes one too many $400 weekend choices and ends up on a credit card. Pause the video right now if you want and run your own snapshot. Use real numbers, not aspirational ones. If your income varies month to month because you freelance or work overtime, average the last 3 months. Don't use your best month. Don't use your worst month. Use the middle. That's your real working number. Once you have your snapshot, you'll see exactly where your pressure is coming from. Sometimes the diagnosis is low cash reserves. You have plenty of margin between income and expenses, but no buffer if something goes wrong. Sometimes it's high fixed costs. Your housing or your car payment is eating so much of your income that you have almost no flexibility left. Sometimes it's debt obligations. Your minimum payments alone are consuming a quarter of what you earn. Sometimes it's a combination of all three. The point isn't to feel bad about the diagnosis. The point is to know what you're actually dealing with so the next decisions can be precise instead of scattered. One more thing before we move on. Your snapshot should include the expenses that don't happen every month, but still happen every year. This is where a lot of people accidentally lie to themselves without meaning to. Car registration, holiday gifts, birthday gifts, school supplies, annual subscriptions, tires, medical copays, travel to see family, home repairs, vet bills. These expenses feel random when they show up, but most of them are not random. They're just irregular. So take 5 minutes and write down the expenses that don't happen every month, but usually happen at least once a year. Then divide the rough annual number by 12. If you spend $1,200 a year on these irregular expenses, that's not a surprise. That's a $100 monthly reality that hasn't been assigned a job yet. This matters because if your snapshot says you have $545 of flexibility, but your irregular expenses average $100 a month, your real flexibility is closer to $445. The money was already spoken for. You just hadn't named it yet. Step 2 is the money flow audit. The snapshot tells you what comes in and what's required. The audit tells you where the rest of it actually goes. This is the step that creates the most discomfort because it's where the gap between perception and reality becomes impossible to ignore. It's also the step that produces the biggest results because once you can see the leaks, you can plug them. Open your banking app and your credit card statements. Look at the last 30 to 60 days of transactions. You're going to sort every single transaction into one of 4 categories: essential, flexible, unnecessary. Unknown. Essential is the spending you can't avoid: housing, utilities, groceries, transportation to and from work, insurance, minimum debt payments, prescriptions. Flexible is spending you choose but could reduce: restaurant meals, entertainment, hobbies, clothes, gifts, anything where the dollar amount is up to you. Unnecessary is the repeat spending that no longer adds value to your life: subscriptions you forgot about, memberships you don't use, apps that auto-renew, convenience purchases that have become invisible habits. Unknown is anything you don't recognize or can't immediately explain, mystery charges, weird merchant names, transactions you genuinely don't remember. And don't just label the transactions. Give each one a decision: keep, reduce, cancel, investigate. Keep means the expense is necessary or genuinely worth it. Reduce means the spending is not bad, but the amount is too high for your current reality. Cancel means it no longer belongs in your life. Investigate means you don't know what it is yet. And until you know, you don't ignore it. This is where the audit becomes useful. A category tells you what happened. A decision tells you what changes. Without the decision step, the audit becomes another spreadsheet you look at once and abandon. With the decision step, every transaction has a next move. This is also where the discomfort kicks in, because as you start sorting, patterns emerge that you've been avoiding. The DoorDash that you assumed was occasional turns out to be twice a week. $210 in food delivery in 30 days. The coffee shop you tell yourself you only hit on Mondays appears in your statement 17 times. The streaming services you keep meaning to cancel are quietly pulling $63 a month while you actively use one of them. There's a Planet Fitness membership from when you moved last year. $25 a month for 9 straight months on a gym that's no longer in your zip code. $225 gone for nothing. According to recent C+R research data updated for 2026, the average American spends about $219 a month on subscriptions across roughly 8 active services. The average American thinks they spend about $86. That's a perception gap of $133 per month, or roughly $1,600 a year, in services people genuinely don't realize they're paying for. Self Financial's 2025 survey found that the average value of unused subscriptions hovers around $11 a month per person, which sounds small until you realize that 55% of subscribers have at least one going unused at any given time. The numbers are conservative when you stack them together. In real audits, the unused subscription line item often runs higher because people forget about annual charges, free trials that converted, and services bundled into other accounts. Then there's food delivery. Then there's the convenience store snacks that aren't really meals but quietly cost $5 to $7 3 or 4 times a week. Then there's the impulse Amazon orders. Then there's the small stuff that doesn't feel small in aggregate. Death by 1,000 cuts is still death. Your bank account doesn't care whether the money left in big dramatic chunks or in tiny painless drips. It only knows the total. Here's the thing nobody tells you about the audit. You're not doing it to shame yourself. Shame doesn't change behavior. Shame just makes you avoid your bank account harder. You're doing it to find patterns you can actually change. That's why the 4 categories matter. Once you know your essential total, your flexible total, your unnecessary total, and your unknown total, the math reveals itself. The unnecessary and unknown categories combined are usually somewhere between $100 and $400 a month for most people. That's the easy money. That's the spending where you genuinely don't get value, where cutting it doesn't reduce your quality of life, where the only thing standing between you and recovering that money is awareness. When you finish the audit, identify your top 3 spending leaks. Just 3, not 15. 3. The 3 categories where the most money is leaving without producing meaningful value. Maybe it's food delivery, ride sharing, and unused subscriptions. Maybe it's online shopping, alcohol, and convenience store visits. Whatever your specific 3 are, those are your highest leverage targets for the next 30 days. You don't need to eliminate everything in those categories. Cutting them by half is often enough to free up $200 to $400 a month, which dramatically changes the math on every other step that follows. And the goal here is not to become the kind of person who never enjoys life. That's where people get budgeting wrong. They confuse control with punishment. A better rule is this: keep the version of the spending that still gives you value. Cut the version that only exists because of stress, boredom, convenience, or habit. If eating out with friends once a week actually makes your life better, keep it. But the delivery order you barely enjoy at 10:30 at night because you're tired and didn't plan dinner, that's probably not the same thing. If one streaming service is something you use every night, keep it. But the 3 subscriptions you forgot existed are not entertainment. They're leakage. This is how you cut spending without making your life feel smaller. You don't remove joy. You remove the spending that was never really joy in the first place. Step 3 is the priority reset. This is the step that most people miss entirely, and it's the reason their money efforts feel like running on a treadmill. They save a little, they pay extra on debt, they buy something to feel better. They cover a surprise expense. Money goes in 5 different directions, and none of them produce real progress because everything's getting 1/5 of the attention it needs to actually move. Priorities sequence the chaos. They tell you, with no ambiguity, what your next dollar should do. The order goes like this: essentials first, minimum obligations second, short-term stability third, extra progress fourth. Let me walk through what each one actually means. Essentials first means the spending you must cover to remain stable. Housing, food, utilities, transportation to work, insurance. These are non-negotiable. Before any other money decision happens, the essentials get covered. This sounds obvious until you realize how often people get this wrong. They send extra money to credit cards while they're behind on their electric bill. They aggressively pay down student loans while their car insurance lapses. They prioritize savings while skipping medication doses to make it stretch. The hierarchy here is brutally clear. Stay alive and stay sheltered. Everything else comes second. Minimum obligations second means staying current on every required payment. Credit card minimums, student loan minimums, car loan payments, required bills with due dates. The reason this comes second instead of first is that being late on these creates penalties that compound your problems. A late credit card payment triggers a fee, a potential rate increase, and a credit score hit. Each of those creates more financial pressure. Staying current on minimums is defensive. It stops the bleeding from getting worse. Short-term stability, third, means building a small emergency cushion and catching up on anything overdue. This is the step almost everyone wants to skip because it feels less satisfying than aggressive debt payoff or visible savings progress. It's the most important step. According to Bankrate's 2026 Annual Emergency Savings Report, 59% of Americans can't cover a $1,000 emergency expense from savings without going into debt. 24% have zero emergency savings at all. 33% have more credit card debt than emergency savings. The country is one car repair away from another credit card balance. That's not a personal failure. It's a structural problem, but it's solvable, and the solution starts with a small buffer. The first goal isn't 6 months of expenses. It's $500, then $1,000, then 1 full month of essentials. The stages matter because they make progress feel real instead of impossible. $500 covers most small emergencies: a flat tire, a modest medical copay, a higher than expected utility bill. $1,000 handles bigger disruptions. Real stability comes around 1 full month of essentials, because that's the cushion that lets you breathe through a bad week at work or an unexpected income gap. Saving $50 a week gets you to 510 weeks, and to 1,020 weeks, saving $100 a week cuts that timeline in half. Whatever amount fits your real numbers, the key is that it's automatic and it's protected. A separate savings account that isn't linked to your debit card. Easy to access if you need it, but not so easy that you tap it for a Friday night decision. Extra progress, fourth, means anything beyond stability. Aggressive debt payoff, larger savings contributions, investment account funding, long-term goals. This is where most financial advice starts, and it's why most financial advice fails. You can't make progress on long-term goals while you're financially fragile in the short term. Every emergency forces you to abandon the long-term plan and rebuild. The fragility itself is what keeps people stuck. Stability isn't separate from wealth building. It's the foundation that makes wealth building possible. Here's the question that comes up almost every time someone hits step 3. Should I save first or pay down debt first? The honest answer is, in most reset situations, the right move is doing both at the same time, but in different proportions, depending on where you are. If you have zero emergency savings, putting every extra dollar toward debt leaves you completely exposed the moment something breaks. The next car repair sends you back to a credit card, and you've made no real progress. If you have overdue bills or missed payments, those have to get caught up before extra debt payments make sense. If you have a starter fund and your bills are stable, then yes, you can shift more aggressively toward debt because you have the cushion to absorb a setback. Let me make this concrete. Say you have $400 a month of extra capacity after running through your snapshot and audit. Option A is sending all $400 to debt and $0 to savings. Option B is splitting it, $200 to savings and $200 to debt. In a fragile month, option B almost always produces better stability faster, because the savings buffer prevents the next emergency from undoing everything. Once you've built up to that $1,000 cushion, you can flip to 90% debt and 10% savings, or whatever ratio fits your situation. The point is that the choice isn't permanent. It's sequenced. Stability first, then acceleration. Step 4 is the 30-day action plan. You now know your numbers, you know where the leaks are, you know your priority order. The last thing you need is a structure for actually executing on what you've learned. Information without action is just expensive entertainment. The 30-day plan is what closes that gap. The plan has 4 weeks, and each week has a specific focus. The structure prevents overwhelm by limiting what you're trying to accomplish at any given moment. Week 1 is diagnosis. This is the foundation week. The 2 main tasks are completing your financial snapshot, which we walk through in step 1, and reviewing the last 30 to 60 days of spending, which is the audit from step 2. These are not glamorous tasks. They're not exciting. They take maybe 90 minutes total if you set aside the time. But they create the visibility that every subsequent decision depends on. If you skip this week, every week after it gets weaker. Don't skip it. Schedule a specific window. A Saturday morning works for most people. Coffee, banking app, notebook, no distractions. 90 minutes. Done. Week 2 is identification and sequencing. By the end of week 1, you have your numbers. Week 2 turns those numbers into priorities. 2 main tasks. First, identify your top 3 spending leaks based on the audit, specific categories with specific dollar amounts, not vague intentions, real targets. Second, set your priority order based on the framework we just walked through. Where exactly does your situation fall? Are you on essentials, on minimums, on stability, or ready for extra progress? Write it down. The act of writing the order down forces clarity that mental rehearsal doesn't. Week 3 is stabilization. This is the action week. You start putting structure in place that will continue working long after the 30 days end. 2 main tasks. First, start or grow your emergency fund. If you don't have one, set up an automatic transfer of whatever amount fits your real numbers. Even $20 a week is better than nothing because it establishes the habit. Open a separate high-yield savings account if you don't have one already. The good ones are paying somewhere around 4 to 4.5% APY in 2026. That's not life-changing money on a small balance, but it's real, and it keeps your buffer growing instead of stagnating. Second, stay current on all minimum payments. Set up autopay on whatever you can. The minimums are the floor that keeps you from going backwards. Protect them. Week 4 is building. This is the consolidation week. You've done the work. Now you assess what's working, adjust what isn't, and set yourself up for month 2. 2 main tasks. First, choose one improvement to repeat next month. Maybe it's continuing the automatic savings transfer. Maybe it's keeping the food delivery cap you established in week 2. Maybe it's the weekly transaction review you started doing on Sundays. Just one thing that's genuinely working, that you commit to repeating. Second, review your overall progress. Pull up your accounts. Compare them to where they were at the start of week 1. Did the numbers move? In which direction? By how much? This isn't about hitting a specific target. It's about confirming that the system is producing results, so you keep doing it. The whole 30-day plan takes maybe 4 to 6 hours of focused time spread across the month. That's it. Roughly an hour a week, give or take, for 1 month in exchange for getting financially clear for the first time in years. The math on that trade is absurd. Most people spend more time per week scrolling on their phones than the entire reset requires. Let me show you what this actually produces in practice. Robert is 53. He works in commercial HVAC in suburban Pittsburgh, earning about $84,000 a year. When he ran his snapshot for the first time, the numbers he came up with were not the numbers he expected. After taxes, his take-home was $4,700 a month. His fixed bills, including a mortgage on a house he refinanced 2 years ago, came to $2,740. His grocery and gas baseline ran about $650. His minimum debt payments, between 2 credit cards, a small personal loan, and the last 14 months of his daughter's car loan that he co-signed, totaled $380. His required outflow was $3,770 a month. His remaining flex was $930. Robert had assumed for years that he had about $2,000 a month of flexibility. He was off by more than half. That perception gap is exactly why his savings account never grew despite intending to save aggressively for a decade. He was making decisions on a number that was almost twice his actual capacity. When he ran the audit, the leaks revealed themselves quickly. 8 subscriptions totaling $94 a month, 3 of which he'd genuinely forgotten existed. About $290 a month in food delivery and convenience meals because the job site schedule made cooking feel impossible. Roughly $160 a month in Amazon impulse orders he couldn't connect to specific decisions. The unnecessary and unknown categories combined came to about $544 a month. $544 in spending that wasn't actually buying him a better life. That money had been quietly disappearing for years. He had no emergency fund, and his credit card balances were starting to creep up, which meant stability came before acceleration. He canceled 3 subscriptions in week 2, which was a $48 a month immediate win. He capped food delivery at 4 orders a month, which dropped that line by about $160. He set up an automatic transfer of $125 a week from checking to a separate high-yield savings account he opened in week 3. He kept all his minimum payments on autopay, so nothing slipped. 30 days later, his numbers had moved. Not dramatically. Realistically, his emergency fund went from $0 to $500. His credit card balances stopped growing for the first time in 7 months. He'd recovered roughly $300 a month of capacity that he could now sequence toward debt and savings. He also reported something that nobody warns you about. He stopped feeling background financial anxiety. He'd gotten so used to that low-grade dread that he didn't even realize it was there until it lifted. Looking at his banking app stopped triggering the stomach drop. The numbers weren't great yet. They were just visible. Visible was enough. By month 3, his emergency fund crossed $1,000. By month 6, it crossed $2,000. His credit card balance dropped by nearly $1,400. None of this came from a windfall. None of it came from earning more. It came from a single afternoon of running through a process and then 30 days of executing on what the process produced. That's the entire point. The reset isn't magic. It isn't extreme. It doesn't require deprivation. It just requires clarity, sequencing, and follow-through. Most people skip it because clarity feels uncomfortable in the short term, and they default to the comfortable confusion they already know. The ones who push through the discomfort find that the other side of clarity isn't more anxiety. It's less. The numbers stop being scary because they stop being unknown. Everything I just walked you through, the snapshot, the audit, the priority reset, the 30-day plan, I built it into a complete system called the Financial Reset System. It's a workbook where every number auto-calculates as you fill it in, so you don't have to do math in your head or wonder if you tracked something correctly. There's a PDF guide that walks you through each step in order, with examples and prompts so you don't get stuck. There's a 30-day action plan with weekly checkpoints so you know exactly what to do in week 1, week 2, week 3, and week 4, without having to remember what I said in this video. If this video helped you see your finances more clearly, the system is how you keep that clarity going month after month, because the same workbook resets each month, and you don't have to rebuild the framework every time. The link is in the description. This isn't about perfection. It's about getting clear, getting stable, and building stronger money habits with whatever income you have right now. Here's what's worth saying as we close. The framework I just walked you through works at any income level. It works if you make $35,000 a year, and it works if you make $135,000. The reason it works is that financial stress isn't actually about how much you earn. It's about whether your money has a structure or whether it's running unsupervised. Unsupervised money produces the same chaos at every income level. 40% of people earning over $500,000 a year live paycheck to paycheck for the same reason that someone earning $50,000. Their dollars don't have an order. The order is what creates the breathing room, not the income. The reset gets you stable. Stability gets you to the next phase. The next phase is where most people start asking different questions. Once your essentials are covered, your minimums are current, your buffer is built, and your extra capacity is sequenced toward real progress, the questions shift. Now it's about what financial traps to avoid in the years ahead. The decisions you make in your 30s shape your 40s. The decisions you make in your 40s shape your retirement. The traps that catch people at 28 are different from the traps that catch people at 48. There's a window in your 30s where the housing decision you make sets the trajectory for your 50s. There's a window in your 40s where the lifestyle inflation you accept becomes the floor you can never drop below. There's a window in your 50s where every year of delayed retirement contributions costs you exponentially more than the year before. None of those windows announce themselves while you're standing in front of them. They only become visible in retrospect, usually too late to change. Anyone who's serious about staying financially intelligent for the long run, anyone who wants to make sure the reset they just completed becomes a foundation instead of a one-time fix, would want to see every trap at every age laid out in advance. Not because they expect to fall into all of them, because seeing them coming is the difference between a life shaped by your choices and a life shaped by someone else's pressure. Financial literacy isn't about memorizing rules. It's about pattern recognition. The patterns are knowable. The traps are documented. Once you've reset your foundation, mapping the road ahead becomes the natural next step. 30 minutes, one framework, 4 steps. The math doesn't lie. The next 30 days are already happening whether you act on this or not. The only question is whether they look like the last 30 did or whether something finally changes. You already know which one you want.